Let's bring in Daniel Turner. He's president and founder of Power the Future, which believes in using our abundant and reliable energy sources in an environmentally conscious way. Daniel, great to see you. Thank you for joining us. We're already seeing gas lines in Europe. In the UK, they have gas lines that are running out of gas at I think it's now the majority of gas stations in the UK. Are we going to see those gas lines here?
Yeah, and it's great that you point out Europe because they are a good 15, 20 years ahead of the United States in embracing this green agenda. And so if we want to know what's going to happen with the Biden policies, we just need to look to Europe. They pay 3 and 4 times what we pay for electricity. They pay 3 and 4 times what we pay for gasoline at the pump. And now they are dependent upon Vladimir Putin begging him to increase the amount of gas exports. And so we will see that in America because this is the deliberate outcome of what Biden is doing. All of these policies that have really made the fossil fuel industry an enemy have hurt supply. And this is a market show, right? This is Fox Business. Right. So your audience understands supply and demand. The demand is increasing as we come out of the COVID pandemic, and the supply is dwindling. That's what happens when you ban fracking. That's what happens when you do not allow people to drill on federal land. Supply is getting crushed.
Well, Daniel, what's extraordinary is a year ago, we had energy independence. We entered into that rare territory. I'd never experienced it before. Maybe it happened when I was a kid, we had energy independence. But because of the policies of Donald Trump to kind of pull the government out of the situation between the producers and the consumers, getting the government out as the middleman, we had energy independence. We became a net exporter of energy. And we had gas prices at the station, which were about $2 and change. Now we have just the opposite. And while we're shutting down U.S. producers, their gas lines, et cetera, we're helping out the Russians with theirs. I mean, the only thing that really surprises me about Biden's policies is that this changeover happened so quickly. Did that surprise you?
It did. And it's really shocking to see because you mentioned just a little while ago we had this great energy boom, and it also lowered emissions more than any other country in the world. And so we were bringing in record revenue to the federal treasury. We're employing record number of people. I mean, 2019 was a winning formula for America. And so to see it reversed with such deliberate willfulness and with in such a short period of time, who is suffering the most from this also? It is not the billionaires like Michael Bloomberg and Tom Steyer who push this green ideology. It's average American families. They are the ones who are paying more to drive their kids to school. They're paying more for groceries, for all consumer goods. This is a tax and a punishment of the American people.
Well, I mentioned Jimmy Carter's gas lines, and of course the situation was very different in many ways, but here's one way in which it was very similar. Neither Jimmy Carter nor Joe Biden have confidence in the private sector to come up with solutions that they can't see themselves, that all of their brain trust, if you will, that Jimmy Carter had, all the brainiacs and all the brainiacs that Joe Biden has, don't have the sense that the people in the private sector have to come up with solutions that these Harvard-educated planners can't envision. For example, fracking. Jimmy Carter never had any idea that something like fracking would come up and provide a private sector solution to gas and would eventually, by the way, lead to fewer emissions, fewer carbon emissions than we had when we were more dependent on coal. So these private sector solutions is what's going to save us, just as it did in the last 10 years. And we're going in exactly the opposite direction with Joe Biden right now.
We really are. And America advanced so much as a country, not because we are smarter, not because we are better, but because we are freer. A free people, given the ability to make the right decisions in a free market, will come up with the best solution at the lowest price point for the most amount of people. Yeah. And we saw that in the last couple of years.
Well, I was just going to say, Daniel, in 2019, which was a hell of a good year for the United States, and particularly our energy production, that's when we found our energy independence, everything. We still had lower emissions. In other words, we had a greater record fossil fuel production. I think it was better than and bigger than any other that we've ever had in the United States history. And we had a record cut in emissions. So you can actually have both, right?
Absolutely. And we have had that winning formula before. And you mentioned OPEC. For the first time in decades, the OPEC cartel had no power over us. And this administration, Joe Biden, has asked OPEC to increase the amount of oil production. So he understands the rule of supply and demand, but he just wants the Saudis, the Russians, the Yemenis, the Venezuelans. He wants them to produce more oil. Why can't we produce more oil in New Mexico, in Alaska, in Texas? We have the ability here. We have the supply here, but we have a government that is punishing the American people for this green and globalist agenda, and they need to be called out for it and hopefully stopped by Congress.
Well, we have the supply, and we also have the ingenuity in our private sector to create all that new energy with lower emissions. We can do both. We proved it over the past 10 years. We could prove it again if the government would let us. I hope eventually they do. Daniel, good to see you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well,